Earlier today, the first motion up for discussion was domestic violence. Proposed by Sue Ramsey and Jennifer McCann, the motion called for the Executive to bring forward proposals to ensure access to refuges and increase funding for support groups. The highly emotive issue enjoyed cross-party support, but the Chamber also heard some harrowing tales. Here's the DUP's Ian McCrea.
Mr Deputy Speaker, all too often in a debate like this, we tend to speak about facts and figures and statistics, and I have no doubt that we'll probably hear a number of those today. But I want to take whatever time I have to deal with a real issue, a real matter, one of someone who I'm aware of who has suffered from domestic violence, and hopefully to put into perspective what we're debating today. Mr Deputy Speaker, a woman and her 3 children were referred to the refuge in November 2008 by social services. The woman had extensive injuries and was taken to hospital for examination. An incident had taken place at her home whereby she was severely beaten and abused by her husband. She sustained bruising to her face, chest, arms and abdomen. Her eyes were swollen and bloodshot, and she had a fractured finger. Her lower arm was also placed in the plaster. The PSNI domestic violence officer attended the refuge to obtain a statement from the woman, and along with social services was in attendance with her on a number of occasions during her first week in the refuge. The refuge staff immediately began work with the woman through a needs assessment and support plan, which incorporates the cycle of violence, healthy and unhealthy relationships, control and power, and the effects of domestic violence on children. She was enrolled on a journey to freedom and My Life Choices programmes, both self-esteem courses which brings the woman through the domestic violence and helps her move on. She also took part in the You and Me Mum course, which also looks at the effects of domestic violence on the children, and attended a personal safety seminar which was organised by Women's Aid and facilitated by the PSNI Community Safety Officer. She attended Delta programmes in relation to parenting and a pharmacy programme which looked at topics such as over-the-counter medication, healthy eating, stopping smoking and antidepressant usage. Unfortunately, Mr Deputy Speaker, this lady was unable to leave the refuge until after 6 p.m. in the evenings due to her fear that her partner may be in the vicinity. She got her solicitor and the children were appointed a guardian ad litem. She attended court on a number of occasions and again was supported by the staff during these hearings. As a result of this domestic violence perpetrated on this woman, she could not return to her home and had to terminate her tenancy and place her furniture and belongings in storage. She then applied for housing in another area and has been on the social housing waiting list since November 2008. There are no suitable houses available to rehome her and her children. In February, her perpetrator was released from prison and immediately made it known he was going to get his wife and children. As a consequence of this, the 3 children were removed from refuge and placed in foster care in order to protect them and ensure their safety. Mr Deputy Speaker, the sad reality of this is that the children still remain in foster placement, although they have regular attendance at the refuge with their mother. The perpetrator continues to try and contact the woman and has called at the refuge so far on 2 occasions. The children in this case are the forgotten victims. They, for their own safety, have been removed for their mother. Mr Deputy Speaker, there is no doubt there is a real need for support groups such as Women's Aid. But the fact is, they cannot provide the service without adequate funding. The reality is that domestic violence continues to destroy the lives of hundreds of vulnerable adults and children throughout Northern Ireland. We, as elected representatives, need to do all within our power to ensure that the support is out there for the victims, whether in the form of full access to refuge, legal aid for vulnerable families or funding for support groups. I support the motion.